Need a motion to approve the adoption of the agenda.
Brannick, so moved.
This Huber, I'll second it.
Who made the motion?
Yes.
Liz Rannick made the motion, seconded by Kathy.
No, Rich Huber.
Rich Huber. Well, they both did. Public comment period. Public comments that are pertinent to the agenda items, resolutions, ordinances of the day. 3 minutes per person. Anyone for public comments?
Point of order, do we have to vote for the approval of the agenda?
Oh, we have a motion and a second. We don't have a vote. I'm just starting off like a bat out of hell here. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Public comment period. Public comment period. Anyone online? Last call, public comment period. Then we'll go to number 4, regular agenda. Approval of the September 14th, 2023 county board minutes. Need a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Kathy Schutte,
Ray, second.
seconded by Brad Ray. All those in favor say aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Resolution R10 2023-1451 to authorize a legal services agreement between the Human Services Department and the Office of Corporation Counsel. Dan?
Yeah, this just authorizes an agreement with legal services, so we become eligible for federal funds in the case of parental rights termination. And this would allow HHS to go out and contract services.
Clarence?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Motion made to approve the resolution by Clarence Campbell, seconded by Marty Vitek. Pat?
Does this change the compensation going forward for corp counsel in the future or the workload?
This would be hiring a different corp counsel. It wouldn't be Max necessarily that does this. Basically federal funding is going to be paying for all of this anyhow. So I believe the rates are going to be around the same. So we pay Clark and Clark around $200 an hour. I believe they'll be doing this too.
Does this take anything off the workload for our current corp counsel then, or not?
No, no, this just allows us to use federal funding to pay them.
Okay.
Did we vote on that?
No.
We have a motion on a second.
Yes, we do.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agreement between the Human Services Department and the Office of Corp Counsel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Resolution R10 2023-1452, clean water resolution. Dan?
Yeah, this is a resolution stating that we support the right to clean water, that it's important to our health and environment.
Mike makes a motion to adopt.
Who say second?
Mike starts second.
Motion made by Mike Berlin to approve. What?
George, you say was the second.
George, you were second? Motion and a second. Any comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Resolution R10 2023-1453. A resolution in support of Ashland County Conservation Lake Monitoring and Protection Network.
So this resolution allows land conservation to engage in lake monitoring and apply for funding from the DNR.
This is Bill
Go ahead,
Metzinger.
Bill.
I move for adoption.
I'll second.
Motion by Bill Metzinger to adopt this resolution, seconded by Kathy Schutte. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Ray
Motion carries.
abstain.
Someone opposed?
No, Bradley Ray abstained.
Hmm?
Brad Ray abstained.
Oh. We on Dino,
Yes, he.
resolution R10,
No, we're doing this.
Oh.
2024 budget,
what?
2024 budget discussions.
Oh, we're done with
Where we
these.
are right now. Yep.
Who are you?
I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay, we'll go to number E, 2024 budget discussion, Dan.
Okay, well, I'm happy to say we have a balanced budget to present to you. You'll know, if you'll notice, there are some departments had some increases. That's most notably due to the pay raises that are in this budget. We budgeted for everyone to get a one-step increase January 1st. So that would be every county employee getting a 2.5% raise. And that follows the wage plan that the county board adopted earlier. So for a lot of these departments, that's what the raises you'll see are. And the big place to look for increases is in this column here where it says increase or decrease in tax levy. Now, we did get about $620,000 in extra shared revenue this year. That's under the new shared revenue plan. So that money is in here and that helps pay for a lot of the pay raises. We also have a slight increase in our levy limit due to net new construction. So that's in here too. So if you look, the biggest cost increase you look is Health and Human Services, which is $574,000. All right, a huge chunk of that, like most of it, is pay raises for that department. The second gigantic chunk is court-ordered commitments. And we've gone over this, at least in finance, that those are expenses that we do not have any control over. They're ordered by a judge and they are completely unpredictable. You could go half a year with nothing. And then in 1 month, you could get 4 or 5 cases and break your budget. An example of how expensive that can be is to send a kid to Lincoln Hills is over $500,000 a year. And that's what the Department of Corrections charges us. It's a couple $100,000 to send somebody to Winnebago or Mendota. So these expenses are very unpredictable. It can happen at any time of year. So they did budget about $1 million for that, which kind of keeps track with where we have been for the last couple of years. But bear in mind that number can go up and down and we have no control. So we also have $393,000 sitting in contingency. So that's money that's not really dedicated to any department. That's money that if we have an emergency come up during the year, we have cash to spend. And so we don't have to go borrow money. Now, in that contingency fund, the executive committee approved a grant writer position. So assuming the county board passes the budget, we would go ahead and hire a grant writer next year, January 1st. There's also $50,000 for a space needs study, which again, the county board has to decide if that's something they want to do. It's in there. If you decide you want to do that, it will come out of there. If not, it will go back to the balance of contingency, which is right now at $242,000. Those are the highlights. Other than that, I mean, our debt levy is a little bit less than last year. As you can see, that's on this line right here. It's 21,000 less. So that's a little bit less extra taxes people will pay. Other than that, I can take questions.
Bill,
How much is in the budget for the grant writer?
100,000. So that would cover wages and benefits. With the grant writer, I want to say we're assuming, that once we hire a person, they start getting grants. Each grant has a 5 to 10% administrative fee that we can charge back. So if you get $1 million grant, you can charge back $50,000 or $100,000 to cover the cost of administering the grant. So that's how we plan to fund that position going forward. So we're looking at the first year is only having an investment in it.
Next question. How much is our budget going to go up as far as the dollar amount? So if my taxes were going to go up, how much are they actually increasing?
They're actually not going to be increasing. Except in the situation where communities have revalued their real estate properties. Our taxes are flat otherwise. But I have to explain the revaluation process because a bunch of towns have gone through this. The city of Ashland went through it last year. Every 5 years or when the assessed value of your house falls below 90% of market value, a municipality is required to reassess all the properties in their boundaries. And with the housing market the way it's been the last couple of years, some houses are going to see dramatic increases in assessed value because of market conditions. That's something that's beyond your control, everybody in this room. It's something that's beyond the taxpayers' control, really. Some people will see a much bigger tax bill because of that reassessment process. Other people will see a lower tax bill. But the overall tax bill for that everyone is still going to be about the same. I guarantee you will get some complaints from people saying my taxes went up X amount, but if you look at what their assessed value difference is, that's what you'll see where the taxes went up dramatically. Myself, mine went up $1,000 last year just because of reassessment. There's nothing we can do about that. That's just the way it is.
Pat, could you talk about the repairs needed to this building? We didn't get bids this year.
Correct.
We budgeted for that. And then there's ARPA money, which has to be expended by the end of next year.
No, it has to be allocated by the
Or
end of next
allocated
year.
by the end of next year. So what are the thoughts on next year? And then do we have enough in the budget, you think,
Yes.
given construction cost increases, if we were to do it next year?
Yes, we have $1.1 million in the budget for using ARPA money. So it's $1.1 million in ARPA funds for that project. We actually have somebody coming today to look at the building, and bids are due at the end of this month. So we should know if we're going to have a contractor before we go to budget. Getting a contractor up here is difficult.
Do you think that there's enough in the budget yet, given construction cost increases since we initially looked at this?
I think there is right now. Like I said, bids are due October 30th. And there's, if needed, a finance committee meeting, is it November 1st? Where we can take that bid and relook at the budget. And if it comes up too much, finance still has the opportunity to make changes then.
Liz,
Brannick, just some questions.
Sure.
The coroner's budget, did that go up? And is that something that is doable for the coroner?
We reduced her amount in 2 line items because they were way out of whack with what the past history was. So we reduced them more to what the level should be. But again, there's contingency funding. So if she does go over, we have the money sitting there at contingency to cover that expense.
Okay, and then second question is, it says decrease jail wages. Does that mean that they got a decrease?
No, the original budget the finance committee saw was 270,000 over, I believe. And we found some double counting of jail wages in that budget. So we removed them out of there because they were counted twice, and that's what you're seeing there.
Thank you.
Microphone.
Taking $100,000 out of the point, police thing. Is that, why that hasn't been settled yet,
The finance committee voted unanimously to remove that from the budget.
but it hasn't been settled, and I mean, and how come that didn't come in front of law enforcement?
PPLE doesn't meet till the end of the month.
What?
PPLE doesn't meet till the end of the month.
How can
But-
we have a budget without it going through some of the committees?
Well, finance committee has seen it and they took the money out.
more questions for Dan. Rich,
Yeah, what about our settlement for our drug settlements and stuff? Where's that at? Or where, is that in here?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
For our drug settlements, that we got, where's that at? Or how is that?
Oh, you mean the opioid settlements?
Yeah,
Okay, no, those are not in the budget. Those are separate.
oh,
And we'll be talking about that at a later meeting, what to do with it. There's still settlements coming in. I mean, we're not done with it. So once we have a better idea of what we want to do with it, then it will come back to the board, how to spend it. I know HHS has a plan where they want to do some transitional housing
okay.
for people coming off opiates, which would use some of it. I know the sheriff's department has needs too with it. So PPLE will be looking at all of that to where we are today, but we have to bear in mind there's more money coming and there's probably more needs out there. So because the money's already here, we can spend that money outside the budget.
Okay, so that'll change our budget maybe then?
No, it won't change
No.
our budget.
Okay.
We could spend it outside because there's very specific uses for that money.
Okay,
You can only, and it's all laid out in the court settlement. I believe there's a meeting back when we'd go through this at the beginning of the year that has all the listings of the approved uses.
okay, thanks.
And I can get that to you too, Mr. Huber.
Okay.
Kathy,
Dan, could you update a little bit, the town of Sanborn issue? I think when we were at our last meeting, it said the parts would be of increases would be spread out through the whole county. Is that still there or has something changed since then?
We have to wait and see what the town of Sanborn does for their levy. If they don't levy as much, then the effect on the rest of the county won't be as much. So it is possible that we don't see any increase from them because of the taxation issue there. So until they pass their budget, we can't really answer that question.
And that would be due in November?
That would be due in November, yes.
Thanks.
Question on the grant writer, is that something just for the county or can towns in Ashland County also use that same grant writer?
It's intended primarily for the county. However, if there are projects that benefit everybody, we would certainly have the grant writer look at that.
Okay, because that's our biggest need in like the town of Jacobs right now is
Right, you
somebody
need-
to write the grants.
Right, especially for your
Water project,
wastewater.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, and that's something we can look, that executive committee could approve the grant writer doing.
Bill,
What's the status of the lawsuit with the town of LaPointe? Could you kind of give us a update, what they want and what we offered them, or is it still pending? Has a date been set?
Well, it's still pending and there is no there is no lawsuit with the town of LaPointe at this point. They did appeal, the DOR's decision to the Wisconsin Tax Commission. They have until middle of December 20-ish, something like that, to file a lawsuit, which they have not done so yet.
go ahead, Bill.
When we were talking about, we brought this up to the executive committee and I probably was the only one against it. I did not like the town of LaPointe being cut on their law enforcement to nothing.
Mhm.
And I think that they requested 135,000.
126.
126, plus they were getting money for a squad car every so many years.
Well, it was 126, including the squad car, 120 in cash and 6 for a squad car plus CPI.
And I guess for them being cut down to nothing, I would have rather seen them get something. And they take a lot of revenue in from the county due to the island.
Mhm.
And to me, in the summer, when they're busy, there's a lot more going on over there. And it's really a unique situation, having an island in your county, and just the law enforcement seems to be more difficult. And so, I guess, to me, I think they should be restored something. I don't know what the dollar amount would be, but I feel that, I'm sure that's the biggest sales tax in the county, and you don't hear people going to the city of Ashland for vacation. You hear them going to Madeline Island. And you got all these people over there and it gets pretty hectic. So, I guess I'm kind of in favor of restoring at least part of it in the budget. I don't have a dollar amount. I think the year before, I don't know the exact amount that was budgeted when they had
135.
135. Well, I feel they should get something, I would be happier if we gave the town of LaPointe like $50,000. I don't know how the rest of the people feel. I just don't represent the city of Ashland. I represent the whole county. And I feel that they're not being treated equally due to their unique situation.
Pat,
The Department of Revenue in their findings said that the sheriff is elected and his ability to provide law enforcement is subject to the limitations of budget and manpower. The sheriff cannot, given the budget and manpower, provide 24/7 service throughout the county. If a city wants to, they can have their own police department. If you're large enough like Ashland, you're required to. So smaller communities that aren't required to have a police department often choose to. Washburn, for example, does, even though the county seat is right there. Bayfield does, and you can go down the list of other communities that pay for their own law enforcement. Madeline Island is no further than going down to the southern end of the county as far as time to get there. As far as the economic benefit, sure, they get some economic benefit, but that helps to keep their stores and businesses going year round, all that tourist money coming in. And certainly Ashland has tourism. Our room tax speaks to the amount of tourism that we have here and the economic benefit of tourism. And, part of the reason we have a police department in Ashland, other than being required, is, we have tourists. So having tourists There's a cost of doing that business, and part of it's law enforcement, part of it's, having garbage cans to pick up garbage, et cetera. But for those of us who live in the city of Ashland, and 11 of 21 seats are city of Ashland, the city of Ashland Police Department budget is over $2 million. Plus they have debt service on a new building that's over $5 million. So I can't go to doors in Ashland and ask people to pay for LaPointe also, when they're already paying for their own police department and they're paying for the county sheriff. The county sheriff doesn't provide 24/7 patrol in the city limits. The real issue here is LaPointe should have never been given money. That should have never happened. We've had 2 referendums, both failed about 60-40, and it's a clear message from the taxpayers: tighten your budget, don't spend money that you don't have to, focus on core services. That message couldn't be stronger. I ran 4 years ago because my tax bill from the county went up 11.6%. I called 3 supervisors and asked, why did my taxes go up so much? And nobody could answer. And in fact, I was told nobody even asked a question about the budget that year. So the county had been spending money and allocating in ways it didn't have to. The budget has gotten tighter. It's focused on more core needs. We're catching up on some deferred maintenance, doing those sort of things. And asking LaPointe to pay for their own police department in full is all that we ask of every other community in this county to do. Pay for your own law enforcement if the county isn't sufficient for you. That's just how it is. That's how it is throughout the state. And they should have never gotten the money, and that's the real issue. And if they don't like the level of service from the sheriff that's elected, run somebody for sheriff who's going to make LaPointe a higher priority if they're not happy with it. But there's a lot of vacant houses, year round over there. So they patrol that. They keep some tourists in line who spend money to keep the businesses open. And yet there's other places in the county where, the sheriff has to decide what's the highest priority, and they have a lot of stuff to deal with. So, bottom line is like Washburn. If you want a police department, pay for it. Iron River, and the other communities, they certainly have the capacity to pay for it. So, and they should.
Go ahead, Liz.
I agree with Bill. I think we should restore it to something because, there's probably 3 months out of the year that it's an overabundance of people that, not everybody is going to be, I work in retail, I work in a restaurant. Everybody is going to the island or Bayfield. They're not spending a lot of money right here. They're spending their money over there. And when you get all these tourists together, there's something unique about that situation. We don't know who's all going to be there, and they need some extra patrol during those months. The businesses mostly close by the end of October. So we wouldn't have to have law enforcement year round over there, but we need something in the budget to give to them because of their unique situation. The crime rate does go up. You have all these bars. There is no, people are drinking, everywhere. It's not like Ashland where you cannot walk down the street here and drink. Things could happen. We need that something there just in case. Thank you.
Kathy?
First of all, Liz, your thought about that all the tourists go to Bayfield and Madeline Island isn't very correct. This weekend, we've got Whistle Stop here in the city of Ashland. That's going to bring over $1 million this weekend. So to say that all the people go over there isn't an accurate statement. Maybe you meant it in a different term. Whistle Stop is this weekend and it's $1 million. They've got people coming from all over the United States to run in this half marathon that is a Boston qualifier. I mean, that's not little pennies that we're talking about. I see some people shaking their heads, yes. So if you're going to give money to LaPointe, well, then you should give money to the city police in Mellon and Glidden and all the way down, because it isn't fair to just give it to one. So I don't think it should be given to any of them. I'm done.
Go ahead, George.
I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but it appears to me that we're stepping on the sheriff's prerogatives here. Sheriff's an elected office. If we think the sheriff needs more resources, or the sheriff thinks he needs more resources to properly serve various parts of the county, let's give the $100,000 to the sheriff's budget. It's his prerogative. Really, we're micromanaging, I think.
Mike,
This has not even come before the law enforcement committee. I mean, law enforcement, the sheriff's department and all that, and it has not been discussed at law enforcement committee. And why does it get to the finance and executive and county board without going through the law enforcement committee?
go ahead, Clarence.
I guess the thing that concerns me about this is that in the last couple of weeks or last month, we saw a report that the town of LaPointe is purchasing the Madeline Island ferry service at a cost of $17 million or something like that. They're going to bond to be able to buy that ferry service and spend multiple millions of dollars over the course of the next 20 years. But they want us to help fund their police department. If they can purchase a multi-million-dollar business, then I think they can afford to fully fund their police department.
Louis,
I had the information and I just looked, I don't have it now, but I believe there's more tourists visit Copper Falls for a full year than what go to Madeline Island, because Madeline Island is a summer spot. In Copper Falls, you get fall and everything, people there. And I looked it up and it's more people go to Copper Falls in a year than go to Madeline Island, so we have to give it to everybody if we just give it to one.
yeah, Pat, Dan, I have a question about the coroner's budget.
Yes.
Is that gonna remain at $20,000?
What we did is she had a very large increase in transportation of bodies and blood testing that was way higher than it has been in previous years, the actual expenses. So we dropped down the budget number to something that's more realistic to past experience. Like I said, we had money in contingency that if she goes over, we can still cover it. But we're trying to get the budget numbers to be more realistic based on experience.
What are her wages for a year?
Well, this is not for her wages. This is for expenses within the department.
I'm talking about her wages.
It's somewhere around 15,000-ish, 17, plus she gets rent for her office.
Well, this is a professional person on call 365 days a
Right.
year, 24 hours a day, in all kinds of weather, working for less than $50 a day.
Right, but this area where the decrease is has nothing to do with her wages or her deputy coroner's wages. It has to do with transportation expenses and testing expenses. And given that we had COVID not too long ago, the numbers she budgeted for are way higher than actual reality. The real numbers that we had in the past couple of years.
Yeah, her budget went up, but she's not realizing any of that.
Well, by state statute, she cannot get a pay raise. Until
Last time I talked to you about that, you said you can only do it at budget time.
we can only do it we can only do it before an election. So it has to be, her papers come out in what, April? She was just elected, but so it has to be done before you take papers out for the next election. So we could raise the pay today, but it wouldn't take effect until 27. When her term ends.
27?
Her term ends in 26. It's just like we could raise county board members' pay today, but it wouldn't take effect until the next county board was elected. There's a clause in the state constitution, and the federal constitution has this too, that elected officials cannot get a pay raise without an intervening election.
So we have a few years then to think about this.
Yeah, we have a few years to think about it. Yeah, she's up in 2026. So we could do a pay raise for coroner between now and any time that she were to pull papers, or whoever's pull papers. Maybe Barb doesn't run again. You don't know what happens by 26. Until it's time to pull papers for it. So like, again, for the county board, like we'd have to do it now because you're pulling papers in December. So it would have to be before then. That's all.
Make the motion, Dick, and I'll second it. Can I say something?
Go ahead, Kathy.
Who of us would want to be the coroner of our county? I cannot imagine what that job entails. So her prices were higher for transportation and supplies. Well, hasn't gas went up? Hasn't blood testing supplies and kits, all this medical stuff? It's really gone up.
Right, but they haven't like almost doubled, which is what she's budgeted for.
Well, gas is really.
Gas goes up and down. Right now, for the next few months, gas is gonna go down in price because they're using winter fuel instead of summer fuel, which is cheaper to produce. So, I mean, gas goes up and down like this all the time. Over the course of a year, it fairly evens out.
I'll make the motion that we increase the coroner's wages for the 26 or 27. It can die for. a little
We
bit.
would have to do a resolution.
Gary,
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were doing something improper or not. It's not it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda. We'd have to do a separate resolution completely.
Then put it on the agenda for next month. Thank you, Gary.
so my question is,
It's
why
still,
don't we get this budget plopped in front of us if we can't even talk about it?
well, the coroner's wages, you can't talk about because she's
not on-
just elected in 22. All right, she can't get a pay raise until 27. She's got a 4-year term, so you cannot give them a pay raise until after the next election in 26. Right, there is a pay raise built into every year. There's like a 2% raise every year.
Well, by the looks of this scale, it must be 50 cents a year.
It's,
We have to do something about that.
well, there's nothing we could statutorily do until 27. Because there has to be an intervening election before there's any pay raise.
Mike?
This is Mike. Would it be fair to request comparison with other surrounding counties on what their coroner gets and bring this back to us
Sure.
prior to approval of this agenda, prior to the approval of this budget?
Sure.
We have plenty of time to do this because we can't give them a raise before 26, 27. So we have time to do a comparison and so
Mhm.
on. Thank you.
Any more questions for Dan? Bill?
What was the coroner's wages in the job study that we had just completed?
No, the coroner is an elected official. We did not,
So- Oh, they did not do any elected officials?
no, because that's set by whatever the county board feels like setting it at.
Go ahead, Mike.
Where are the details available for things like general county, or I mean, like what were our legal fees last year and next year?
Legal,
Where are the details behind this?
I could send you the 600-page report if you like.
What?
I could send you the 600-page budget if you like.
But how can we, okay, if we
So
don't know.
legal fees are budgeted at 50 grand this year. Or say, no, increased at 50 grand, so they're budgeted at 65.
George?
Yeah, to Mike's point, could that information be available online? So
Yeah, we
take
can
a
put it
look at
online. Yeah. We can put the whole gigantic mini megabyte file online, yes. But if you have a question about a single line, and we can answer that too.
Bill,
At the final budget meeting, can we still amend it?
Yes. Yeah, we will have an agenda item for individual supervisors to offer an amendment.
any more discussion on the budget?
If you have more questions or comments, you can ask me anytime. Otherwise, Finance Committee's meeting's on the 17th. You can also direct, if you have changes, you can let your Finance Committee members know what you'd like to see changed also.
Kathy, on the coroner, since the board can't change that for 3 years from now, if the board waited 3 years from now and looked at the data available then on comps for other counties and what inflation has been since then, you'd have better data 3 years from now. Because if staff spends the time doing a resolution and collecting that data now, 3 years, if the board wants to revisit it, staff would be redoing that. So you made that request, but 3 years from now, better data. And
Would be better.
It won't change the current wages prior to the next election anyway.
I just feel that, was she the only one that they lowered her business supplies or whatever you call it?
Well, no, I mean, we lowered money in the Veterans Department too, because he had $4,000 budgeted for flags, maintenance of cemeteries, and he spends $125 a year. I mean, why would you budget 4,000 when every year you spend $125? So we lowered that to $1,000, just to make it more realistic. I mean, you're not gonna, if you're not gonna spend that much money, why are you budgeting it when other departments need it?
And
George?
Dan, you did say too that if her blood supplies or kits, whatever her job requires, if it does go back up and she goes over her budget, you will cover that for her.
Yeah, we'll take it out of contingency. If she goes over, it'll come out of contingency. And then next year we'll budget a higher amount because she had a real experience of doing that.
George,
I just wanted to speak in support of pulling money out of budgets when it's unnecessary. Reducing budgets is not a bad thing.
all
Thank
right.
you, George.
This was just a discussion item. Any more discussion?
I just have one other thing. There is a spreadsheet that runs around through all the counties that has the list pay of every elected official on there. And it gets updated every year. So, I can make that available to any supervisor that wants it.
I'll take that.
Yeah, and that way you can actually, I can just email it to the whole board. How's that? And that way you can see what the comparable rates are with different counties and different size. Just have to caution you with coroner, some counties don't have coroners, they have medical examiners, which is a completely different position.
Any more discussion?
And Steve's on the line if you have any questions for him.
Any more questions for Dan? If not, we'll move along to or F. Approval of the Ashland County Library Service Plan for 2023 to 2027. Clarence,
Make a motion to approve.
motion by Clarence Campbell. Rich,
I'll second it.
seconded by Rich Huber. Discussion. Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Reports and updates. Dan?
Okay, well, most of our time has been spent on the budget since we talked last time. Mr. Metzinger asked a question about LaPointe, so you heard where we are in that. We're still working with the town of Sanborn and the other counties to come up with a solution, an equitable solution to the 3.6 million that the state approved. But we think we have one that we're going to present to the governor. After that, joint finance has to decide. But the plan we're looking at right now makes everybody whole. It makes the county whole. And over the course of the 2 payments, will make the town whole also. So that's an important thing. I have had questions from Sanborn residents about actions the tribe has taken. I'm going to say, if you get questions on it, those are federal issues and the county has nothing to do with it. They should contact their federal legislator. Since we have nothing to do with it. So, other than that, that's all we've been doing since our last meeting. I'll be in Madison next week to lobby our legislators. We'll be trying to get more money for the area and to come up with a more long-term solution for Sanborn. So all the taxpaying residents are treated fairly and all the tribal members are treated fairly. Make sure that everybody in the town gets the services that they need and deserve. So we're looking for a long-term solution there. I don't know how the state's doing that. I've also been in contact with Senator Baldwin's office about a long-term multi-year appropriation that would make up for the lost tax revenue for all the properties being exempt. That way, the towns, the school and the counties, all of them affected, would be able to keep taxes lower and get in a federal appropriation to make up for the difference. Obviously, that's not going to happen this year. We'll be lucky if Congress passes anything this year yet. But we're looking for next year's appropriation process. And going forward, something to make it equitable for everyone. So that, and we'll keep doing that, and I'll let you know what happens as that happens. I'm guessing, we won't hear anything until May, June on that. Until Congress does their next budget, starts that process. I do know that the Senate is trying to put the LACTF money, which is that $1.14 million that they gave us to cover the Chequamegon Forest as a pill payment. That was the first time they did that. And so we got $577,000 last year, and we got it again this year. That money is what we're using to finance the joint dispatch merger. The Senate has that money again this year. So there's odds that we may be getting that again for over the next 2 years, which would be a great help for us. And I'll let you know if and when that happens. Somebody brought up opiates earlier today. PPLE will be looking at that. How do we spend it? What do we do? Again, it's hard to say because we don't know how much money we have. There's still settlements being made. I know that the Kroger made a settlement just recently, but we haven't gotten the money yet from that. We haven't gotten the money yet from the Walmart settlement, the Walgreens settlement. There's going to be other mid-level ones that are coming out there. There's also the Purdue Pharma one, where the Supreme Court kicked out their bankruptcy case. So that one may change completely. So it's kind of hard to predict what we're going to do with the funding because we don't know what we have. So and also a lot of these companies are changing. They had the option of paying over 20 years or accelerating the payments. So some of them, like J&J, accelerated to over 7 years. So we're getting bigger payments, but for a shorter period of time. So we have to take that all into consideration when we look at it. And I'll get you more information as we know when that happens. So, and I can put that in the communications piece of the agenda, which, by the way, is a fairly new item. That's something where if I see something or staff sees something that we think the board should see, but it doesn't necessarily need to be an agenda item, just an information item, it will go under that topic, communications. So you're generally aware of things. I can take questions.
Dan, you mentioned in the earlier discussion that contingency has 50,000 for a space needs study.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on if you're only looking at existing buildings or possibly new or different buildings? And if there is a need for space, do you have any sense of remodeling costs and upgrades and where that money would come from?
Well, I guess that's what the study would look at. Obviously, we know there's needs for space in this building, and we know there's needs for space in the Sanborn building. I guess a consultant would look at that, and I guess finance committee has to decide if they even want to fund it, to be honest. A consultant will look at what are the options for remodeling either a building. My guess is they're very prohibitively expensive and that we're cheaper off buying a building. But that's something a consultant would have to do. And they would not only look at space needs, they'd be looking at security too. Making this building more secure. Which I think is a priority considering what we've seen happen in courts around the country.
Do you envision them also considering that parcel by Excel Energy, looking at the land the county owns there and whether it's all things considered with remodeling costs and space needs, looking at whether or not it's time to consider a building there and changes, or you really believe this is in existing buildings?
I think to build a new campus over on that 20 acres would cost us $40–50 million. So I don't know if you guys are ready to go out bonding for that amount of money. I think we can buy an existing building for a lot less. For an example, the OLL building, which they're selling off their middle school gym and classroom, which is a huge space. It's already off the tax rolls, and they want $1 million for that. That would solve all of our space needs studies and not take any property off the tax roll. So I think those are things we'd have to look at. Can we find existing properties that suit our needs so we don't have to go spend huge amounts of money building new? But again, that's the consultant would have to look at that.
Bill.
At the annual meeting that we have in November,
Mhm.
is that when we would discuss salaries for the county board officials? Is that on the agenda to do that?
I can put that on the agenda for the next meeting, which is November 7th for everyone.
But that would be the time to discuss next, because that's the elections in April.
You'd have to pass a resolution between now and the end of November in order for it to take effect for next year. So we can put it on I can put a resolution on the exec committee agenda for the exec committee to decide, and then you guys can decide if you want to move it forward, and if you do, what dollar amount that would be. And then we can do that, pass that resolution before the budget is passed, and then amend the budget to increase that amount. But that's up to you guys would have to do then. So are you requesting I do that for exec?
Yeah, if that's what it takes.
Okay.
Dan?
Yeah.
This is Laura. Now, I realize that the $50 isn't a lot of money. We are in public service, but I want us all to remember too, that every time I go down to WCA, I ask other officials what they're getting, and we are on the higher end of that bracket. There's one other county that gets $55 a meeting, and the rest of them are getting 45 or 35. So I would hope we would take that into consideration as we look at this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think I have that data here for most counties, so I can give exec committee those numbers. Also, while Ms. Nagro's on the phone here, I did want to say the budget includes a 50% increase for the aging unit too, just so everybody knows.
Hey, Dan, this is Blake. I don't know if you can. And I was at my first WCA conference, and it was a great time. Got to meet a lot of people, hear a lot of good things. But something that came out is that as someone who's working now in these committee meetings, I'm having a difficult time attending 9 a.m. meetings. especially the finance committee and during budget times, because it takes upwards of several hours sometimes in some of these. So I would like people to start considering maybe moving some of these county meetings to a time that's more appropriate for people who are working and planting the seed.
Each committee chair can ask for that to be on their agenda if they like. I do know we have two committees that meet later. HHS meets at 4:15 and PPLE meets at 5.
As we all know, the weather has changed, and just walking here, I was really cold. I'm thinking about, you know, those individuals that don't have a place to go. Has Ashland County or the city thought about any emergency shelter ideas or anything? We don't want any, bad things on our heads. And these are, you know, people's family members that many of them are too old to live back at home. Some of them don't have family. A lot of them have addiction issues. I seen what Duluth, you know, they have a bigger area and they don't even have the room or anything, but they do have ideas for emergency shelters. I know it probably would cost a lot, but I think it would cost us more in the long run if we don't look at something right now. Because of these people, most of them are not criminals. It's not a criminal thing to be homeless, but it's the idea of what you're gonna do when you are homeless, what you're gonna do for food, for money, for shelter. There have been many break-ins lately, and we do not know for sure if this is homeless individuals or if this is something that a rash of crime that's just gone more. But I would like to see some kind of idea what we can do. I don't want to live with that on my conscience that people are out sleeping in these elements. Thank you.
I do know the city has looked at opening a warming shelter. I don't know where they are than that. Mr. Chairman, do you know if they're doing anything in the city? Is the city doing anything with a warming shelter? Okay. Tom, did you hear
You
anything?
guys use your mics.
Yeah. So we do have the homeless shelter, and they are planning to expand into some additional units. They're the units that are 2 stories on the Bayfield County side. But yeah, they're having trouble finding contractors to renovate the buildings to make them habitable. I do also know that I saw in the daily press online that they're looking for volunteers and resources to help people. So if anybody has at least resources to help homeless people, that could be food, blankets, clothing, you name it. They're accepting donations there.
Dan,
Yes, sir.
in regards to the homeless shelter you're talking about, I think it would be far better off to get to the root of the problem and see what's causing it rather than trying to fix something we don't know how it happened. I shudder to think of people that can't get in out of the weather up here in northern Wisconsin. But it hasn't always been this way.
Right. Right. I think the root of the problem is there's not enough affordable housing. That's really what it comes down to. There is a complex going up by Walmart in the city. They have room there to put more units. The state legislature is creating $1 billion revolving loan fund to help fund workforce housing. I've been looking at where can we put housing in Ashland County? You know, is it this county buying the land and giving it to a developer to develop it? But then you run into the issue of utilities, you know, sewer and water. So it has to be a place where one of the municipalities can easily put sewer and water. So the 20 acres of land that Mr. Kinney was referring to could be one of those locations. The city already has sewer and water there, running there. It's close to the schools. It's close to the hospital. It's on the BART line. Getting development in that area of the city would push development further south also, which is really the only direction the city can go. Which then would, of course, help Mellon and Jingles and everybody else, because you're creating more density there, which would create job opportunities and housing opportunities. And, you know, instead of Fleet Farm going to buy Ashland Ford, they might go there, you know, because there's more people there. So I think that's something the county can look at as to how we solve that long-term problem is, you know, with helping with land. We don't have the ability to create a TIF district like a city does. We don't do utilities like a city does, or a town or village does. You know, but we can certainly help with the land portion. And it's finding the right plot, and it's finding a willing seller, and finding a municipality that wants to do it. So that's one of the things I am doing. I'm looking at different plots and talking to the municipalities. But it takes money. You know, back when my Abbotsford days, we had a developer that put up 16-unit apartment buildings. So the city gave them the land for $1 an acre, and they paid for the roads. They paved all the roads, and they put all the utilities in. And the TIF district paid for it all. But the developer still had to pay $2.2 million. That was back in 2019 for the units to build that. I mean, it's a lot of money. That's a couple $100,000 per unit for an apartment building. So I know if you want to build a house today, you know, just like a house, just like any of you guys live in now, is $200 a square foot. And then it goes up from there depending on how you fancy you want things, what kind of knobs you want, and you know what kind of sink you want. You know, do you want a fancy fall? The numbers could just go way up right from there. Do you want wood floor instead of laminate? I mean, but it starts at around $200 a foot, and that's if you can get somebody to build it. So, I guess it's a hard nut to crack.
Mike.
Once again, this is Mike. Say, as we talk about the housing needs here in Ashland County, and seeing what's going on over here in Superior and Douglas County and such. And as you're indicating that you're currently looking at surrounding areas, and of course, the only place we can go, as you indicated, is south of Ashland, because we can't go north and out in the lake, of course.
Yeah.
But is there any coordination or collaboration with the city of Ashland in their endeavors?
Yeah, I've been talking to the mayor and the city administrator.
If we, the county, was to take this to the next step, could there be a collaborative effort, say, in developing a task force? Obviously, we're already looking for $50,000 set aside here to take a look at needs. Or could that be a collaborative effort?
Yeah, I can call Brant up and see what interest the city has.
Once again, this is not going to go away.
Right.
And like Dick, Chairman, I believe, just mentioned that this didn't just happen. It gradually comes in, all of a sudden now it's a big issue. Housing, homeless.
Right.
And COVID didn't help.
Now, I will say there is a task force like organization already in working, and that's the Schwamigan Bay Housing Alliance that this county board voted to join a couple meetings ago. So we are working already with Northwest Regional and other communities in the area to get housing. There's also the RPN, the Rural Partnership Network, which Louis is more involved than anybody else on the county board. And that's one of the issues that I've identified as the prime need for Ashland County as a whole is housing. You know, we don't need it just in the city. We also need it down in Mellon. We need it in Butternut. We need it everywhere. You know, there's only one way we're going to grow this community, and that's with more development. And right now, most of our employers cannot get employees because there's not enough housing to get employees. So I know that police departments have somebody hired, and teachers too, in school districts. They have somebody hired who really can come here, and all of a sudden they back off because they can't find any housing. So I think that's an issue that's is in the whole region, well, the whole country really, but it's something that we need to look at all over the place. And we are doing that with the Swamigabe Housing Alliance. And we'll be using the RPN to leverage some federal money also. So communities are involved in this.
Liz?
To reiterate about the opioid settlement, when will we know how much we have? And I just want people, I know it's sickening to hear it, but these are families that every day are going through grief because, like I said, there was so many ODs just this year. And is there anything that could be done once they're in the jail system with that money?
Yeah, so the sheriff just applied for some opiate settlement funds that the state got for the MAT program. So that's medicated assisted treatment in the jail. The goal is that when people come into the jail and they're on whatever opioid it is to provide treatment for them in the jail right away, because that way, you know, you're getting them off the drugs, then making both them safer in jail, all the other inmates safer in the jail, and the sheriff's department staff safer in the jail. It also makes it easier for them when they get out of the jail to get into a treatment program because they're already being treated. It also makes it easier for them to get housing because, like the homeless shelter, if you're on drugs, they won't take you. But if you can show you're in treatment and you're not taking drugs, you have a chance of getting in if there's a spot. So it's really important to treat people right away instead of just kicking them out on something. So the sheriff did apply for that, but there'll be more opportunities for more funding from both our money and state funding.
Marty?
There's a lot of subsidized housing in the county units.
Yes.
I'm wondering if anyone knows what the current vacancy rate might be. Is it, I'm sure it's pretty, there's no vacancies basically in Ashland, but I'm wondering about like in Mellon and Glidden and Butternut. Are there vacancies down that way? Anybody know?
Mr. Merchant might know.
Yeah, and I'm only speaking for the county housing authority, not the city. But at last month's meeting, we had one vacancy in Butternut, but that was basically because that apartment was being redone. And there was, of all the other units, there was only one other vacancy at that point. Normally, you know, I hate to pick on Brookside and Butternut, but that one seems to have the most vacancies from time to time because a lot of the folks that are in there are elderly and there's reasons why they would move out. But the county housing stock is full. I mean, if you have one vacancy in the entire, you know, Glidden, Mellon, Butternut area, it's rare. And they don't hold them very long.
Yeah, there's always going to be a certain amount of, you know, people moving in and moving out, that kind of vacancy.
I'll also add that the voucher program that the county housing authority does usually has a wait list. So it's open, you can apply, but you're on a wait list until a voucher comes open too. So that we're basically are full in county, and Ashland County Housing Authority does not just Ashland County, but Iron County, Bayfield County, Douglas County, Price County, and maybe Gary can remember the other counties. I can't, but it's pretty much northern Wisconsin.
Thanks.
Dan, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Due to the fact that we got such a housing problem, are we doing anything to work with developers?
Well, we have to identify a piece of land first. And a willing municipality. I have worked with some developers in the past who are willing to do something. But again, it comes down to what property and what will the municipality will work with it. You know, we got to remember that some of the difficult part of that is the NIMBYs out there. Nobody wants a development in their backyard. You know, we saw this happen recently in Mason, I think it was, where they wanted to put affordable housing in there and the town rebelled. Barksdale too, I believe, they were looking at putting it there and the town there rebelled too. I know there was issues in Ashland before I got here with the other site. You know, so the state legislature is changing the law on that. They're going to say that if the zoning approval is already there, like you've already zoned that area for housing or multi-purpose housing, multifamily, that the default answer is yes, you have to let it happen. And there's going to be incentives for communities to rezone to let that happen. So we as a county, we're going to have to look at our zoning too, to open up the zoning in the towns to what's acceptable. And that's something they'll have to start looking at. But we do want to make areas that could be housing able to have it. Again, and I want to stress the people who are going into these units, they're people who already live here. They're not people coming from outside who are drug addicts or thieves or whatever. It's literally people who are already living in this area who are couch surfing or homeless or, you know, staying with family, whatever. It's not drawing in undesirables from the outside, which is the great fear. The problem is we have enough people here that need those spots. And that's what these units do. They give housing to people who already live here, who already work here, who are already part of the community. And that's the thing we have to recognize as a county going forward, that we're not attracting riffraff. We're giving housing to people who are already here. So.
This conversation has come up since I've been here now, and I again think that housing is the number one issue between elderly housing as well as, you know, housing for people that come from addictions back into their housing. So yes, this is very important. I hope that, you know, between us and the city of Ashland, not just Mellon and Glidden, but, you know, right now we need to be identifying property to try to find what the right housing. Developers are going to come in once they have a good idea of what's expected, and then they can come in. But another piece of it is developers love tax credits. So if we can find a way to come up with low income tax credits and get those dedicated to projects, that's almost a sure way. Now, I'm not sure how to do that, Dan, but we do need to start thinking about if that's an option going after those.
That is an option if the city decides to create a TIF district. Or there's also state tax credit through the State Housing Authority.
Go ahead, Pat.
The agenda item is reports and updates from the administrator. We've probably pushed the line as far as open meeting laws. We're having a discussion about a particular topic rather in depth that we haven't specified on the agenda. So unless we retitle these things differently, we've pushed the line, I think.
All right. So any other questions that don't cross the line? That Mr. King. Otherwise, I'll yield to the next item.
And yeah, is that all you have, Dan?
Yes, sir.
I just got a quick statement here, and if I cross the line, I don't care. Contrary to some of the publicity we've been getting, Dan's been getting about resolving the Sanborn issue, I just want people to know that he's doing everything humanly possible to make sure this doesn't happen again. State of Wisconsin is to blame for this debacle, and only the state of Wisconsin can fix it. And I've been on Dan a lot. And he's working tirelessly to resolve this issue, so I just wanted to get that out there because sometimes the press is not kind.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move along now to, yes, Kathy.
Are we doing a county board supervisors yet?
I was going to do that.
All
before
right.
You raised your hand.
Thank you.
We'll go to 5B County Board of Supervisors. Kathy, do you have something?
Hi, Dick, how are you?
Oh,
This is for Dan and Sue and Dick. Joe Barabee was the mayor of Mellon for 32 years. And he recently passed away, and he was the longest serving mayor in the state of Wisconsin. He was between 32 and 42, or between 32 and 34 years of being the mayor. Would it be appropriate to do a resolution next month honoring he was the longest serving mayor in the state of Wisconsin? Can we do a resolution to that effect?
sure.
And maybe I can find some bullets for you to put in the resolution. I think we deserve that to him. And his father was the mayor of Mellon, so they've really got a big span of years of service for the city of Mellon.
Sure.
Can we put that on the agenda for next
Yeah.
month?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody else? One last thing, make sure you turn in your vouchers. Yes, Rich.
I just got one thing, when we do the budget, do you think we could find some money to actually fix our flagpole so it looks decent?
The one out front here?
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk to Dave about that.
Anybody else? Mike. Motion to adjourn unseconded. John, did you have your hand up?
Can you guys use your mics?
John seconded. Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Well, this started out to be the shortest meeting on record, but it didn't turn out that way.